What's going on, everyone? It's Joe Rapp here, and if you can't tell, there's two things different about the set today. The first is that we're back in the bunker. Figured it was an appropriate time to come on downstairs, get in the bunker, and start producing content down here and changing up the set a little bit. In today's video, you'll start to learn why exactly I'm saying that. And the truth is that I just got back from Bitcoin 2021 in Miami. And the second thing is the difference is you might be able to tell I got a pretty nice tan going on. But the bunker and Bitcoin Miami have two common things, two things that are tied to each other. It's that the global hash rate, the global currency war has started. And in today's video, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is an overview of the conference that is Bitcoin 2021. I'm also going to be talking about El Salvador and actual nation states, countries now deciding that they're going to use Bitcoin, they're going to use it as a currency, and they're going to reserve in it. So currency wars are starting, folks, and I'll be producing most of my videos now in the bunker. But even though these currency wars are starting, don't worry at all because I'm going to be here to guide you through that ride. Okay, great. So let's get into it. In today's video, I'm really just going to be providing an overview of the conference through my eyes. I figured a nice vloggy, conversational-based video was a good way for me to share everything I saw, everything I learned, my feelings, how, Joe going to it. What's your overview now of like coming back from it? Give me the truth. Don't give me anything holding back. And I'll also share a lot of insider information, not really insider information, but just information from the inside of the conference, some things I learned and my biggest takeaways. I'll provide some clips here and there as we go along through this video, and you will be able to kind of see what I saw. But it was a great event. The last time I had gone to a conference was a Bitcoin conference was January 2018, and that was for the North American Bitcoin Conference. That was a smaller venue. It was at one of the convention centers down by Brickwell, Miami. Forgive me, I'm not from Miami, but I loved Miami, and I'll be going back down there. But this venue was a lot larger. So the difference between this last conference in 2021, Bitcoin 2021, and the 2018 North American Bitcoin Conference was the amount of people that attended. This last conference, the Bitcoin 2021 conference, had, I believe, over 12,000 attendees, 12,000 people attending the event. Whereas the last conference down there in Miami in 2018 had, I don't know, maybe like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. I don't know the exact number, but it was a lot less than it was this time. And the event this time was held in the Wynwood district, which is like the art district of Miami. Absolutely beautiful. And it was on this kind of, it looked like an aircraft hangar building with a bunch of courtyards, and there was a basketball hoop, and there was Connex boxes that were lining the outsides of it. They had food trucks all along the perimeter. Walking into the venue this year, there were a lot of different sections going on, and I can tell that there was going to be a lot of good things to do when I got there. So there was over 3 stages that were there. The main stage had 3,000 seats set up. The second stage was a little smaller, maybe close to 1,000 seats, and then there was several domes. Swan Bitcoin was there; they had a dome. There was the free and open source software, the FOSS dome, that had smaller panelists on with them, and there was just everyone everywhere. There was a skateboard ramp with Tony Hawk, which we'll get into a little bit later in the video. So it was a mix of just everything that was there. Really great event. Now, one of the greatest things is it was actually kicked off by not just the mayor of Miami, but Ron Paul. Now, some of you may know who Ron Paul is, some of you may not, so I'll just give a quick overview. Ron Paul is got to be, I think, in his 70s by now, but he's a politician that has been in the United States in the Libertarian Party now for his entire career. He's no longer a politician, but he was a politician for the United States through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and into the 90s, I believe. His son is actually Rand Paul as well. So if you're into politics and U.S. politics, Rand Paul is the son of Ron Paul. But one of the things Ron Paul actually does nowadays is runs a program called the Liberty Report, which you can find on YouTube, and you can also head over to their website to watch. So he really speaks about all of these ideas of liberty, freedoms, and he fought for that in U.S. politics. So I really enjoyed seeing him as one of the keynote speakers. Now, one of the things that Ron Paul was mostly harping on is what liberty means and what it means to have liberty. A lot of what I talk about in my videos and my channel covers a lot about economics, global politics, history, and cycles that happen within that history. And one of the time periods that we're going through right now really mimics the 1930s and 40s, just before World War II. There are currently, right now around the world, authoritative governments and governments that are trending back to these ideas of communism, social Marxism, socialism, and just overall totalitarianism, just as they did in the 1930s and 40s that led up to World War II and caused World War II. But a lot of the same economic situations and the currency, the shape of the actual currency during that time, just like the US dollar is a currency today, really dictated why society even found itself under authoritative socialist, communist, Marxist regimes. And my overview of Ron Paul's speech is that he really covered, what liberty means, where we are today in this cycle of history, how we're going through another cycle of these kind of ideals and, this kind of totalitarian, authoritarian viewpoint. But just reminding people that at the end of the day, freedom and liberty is what is best for the person, and free markets are what allows the individual to have sovereignty and prosper. And a real free market economy, which the U.S. hasn't actually had for quite a long time, it's been crony capitalism in the United States mostly. But in a real free market economy, you are the product. You benefit the most from the market. And he really was pushing that message clear, and he believed that Bitcoin was a way to that world. And going forward through society now, Bitcoin is going to be even more important than it's ever been. So Ron Paul gave great speech. A lot of these videos you can watch on YouTube as well. Now, the second thing that I want to cover, and that came up right after Ron Paul's speech, one of the things that stuck out is that Bitmex is actually sending Bitcoin to the moon. Now, some of you may have heard Elon Musk recently discussing about how he's going to send Dogecoin to the moon. He's got a few, Mars missions coming up with the SpaceX. But it was a surprise at Bitcoin 2021 this year when we found out that Bitmex was partnering with Astrobotics to actually send some Bitcoin to the moon. So as it turns out, Bitcoin will be beating Dogecoin to the moon. I think that's quite funny. Elon Musk has obviously been quite a troll for the Bitcoin community and a lot of the internet, really. If you don't realize it about Elon Musk yet, he is someone that understands technology. He's someone that knows how to use the internet in a way that will attract a lot of eyes, a lot of attention, a lot of the trends. The memes, for example, that's something that he really understands. So I personally found it kind of funny that this was kind of a jab at the meme master himself. So Bitcoin is going to the moon. That's going to be partnered with Bitmex and Astrobotics. I'm so parched. I've got this mason jar with water. I don't know if anyone uses mason jars out there, but this thing is great. You fit 3 cups in here, 24 ounces. You just bang back like 3 of those a day, and you'll be good to go. Okay, I digress. Third coolest thing that happened at the conference for me personally was Tony Hawk actually skateboarding. So, I'm a millennial, obviously, grew up with Tony Hawk Pro Skater video games in the late 90s, had the first video game console, so definitely I know Tony Hawk. Everyone in the world knows Tony Hawk. But what a lot of people in the world might not know about Tony Hawk is that he's been buying Bitcoin since 2012. He's been buying Bitcoin since 2012. Bitcoin came out in 2009, really. 2008, October 31st, 2008, I believe the white paper was launched. Satoshi launched the white paper. in January 2009, I believe. First Bitcoin block is mined. So technically, Bitcoin really started in 2009. And Tony Hawk bought in 2012, so he was an OG. He's real early, and that's one of the coolest things. And that was his panel was mostly talking about exactly that, like him with Bitcoin, how he built his business, what he understood about technology and information. Strategies that he used, and ultimately, Bitcoin is an early thing, just like the internet, and what his thoughts were on the growth. And a lot of what he had to say was that he thought that the internet grew within a 20 to 30 year period. Bitcoin's already grown almost to the scale of the internet in just a 10-year period. So the amount of growth that we're probably going to see within Bitcoin and crypto is going to be a lot faster than people think. And that's something that I also believe in. And I get asked this quite a bit, especially when it comes to the price of Bitcoin. And, Joe, do I buy Bitcoin or do I buy some other shitcoin? And, you need to understand that Bitcoin was the first. It's the largest network. It has the most value in it, which makes it the most secure. And there's only 21 million of them. Not like these other shit coins that exist out there. Some have a trillion, some have 500 billion that will exist. Bitcoin only has 21 million. So Bitcoin is a network, because it's the same as like social media networks. It's the same as the email network. All these different networks that are created, the more they grow, the stronger they get, the more valuable they get. And Bitcoin is already surpassing the speed of the internet. And a lot of people think that Bitcoin will bring us, Internet 3.0 and a new internet ultimately. So that was kind of his main takeaway that I understood to be the most. I'd say the next thing, fourth thing here, and this one could have probably bumped up a couple of them, but of course it's Max Keiser from the Keiser Report. Love Max and Stacy. I've been a big fan. I've been watching the Keiser Report for probably 4 or 5 years now, and also Orange Pill podcast. The Keiser Report is a financial news program that you can watch on YouTube, and also Orange Pill podcast is their podcast right now on Bitcoin, which is very entertaining. A lot of good information. That's how you stay up to date in this world. That you follow Keiser and Keiser Report. But Max was out there preaching and being the evangelizing Bitcoin. He was there all in white. He gave the fuck Elon preach as he got on stage. He did the Keiser thing, saying we're not selling, which was awesome, and it was true because no one fucking sells. If you look at the stats with the Bitcoin over the long term, there's something like 82% of the people that have actually bought Bitcoin that have not sold it. So we're not selling. We're not fucking selling. That's pretty much what he was pushing. And fuck Elon, because fuck Elon. So shout out to them. One of the things that I've taken away from the Keiser Report that we continue to see within Bitcoin and globally is this idea that there's a lot of wrong going on in the world. There's a historical shift happening in the currency. There's all these issues that we see, but they're all connected ultimately. They're all connecting. The inequalities that we see within society are driven by the wealth inequality from the banking industry, which is driven by the banks getting to create the money first, and they give it to their friends that are at the top. And the only reason that exists is because the central bank creates the money. It's not hard money like it's been historically, where not one person or one company can decide on how much of it exists, like a gold standard where there's only so much gold on Earth, and that's what you had, right? And so this is all connected. The money, society, cycles, pretty much all of what we are. This is all just one kind of chapter in the books, and it's been amazing to learn about Giabo and their concept of Giabo, which is the global insurrection against banker occupation. And the belief is that Occupy Wall Street, 2008, 2009, the housing crisis, the system was supposed to come down ultimately, but there was this, the banking class, the central banks experimented and didn't let it go its way and collapse, and they just started creating a lot of free money. And all that's done since then is it's made the rich richer and the poor poorer. And that's what happens when money is broken and it has no supply. And ever since then, though, there's been an uprising. There's been uprisings all around the world. There's the Arab Spring that occurred just after it. Most recently, the Hong Kong protests. There was the Spanish protest, the Gilets jaunes in France, which I had the ability to be on the ground for in France with the yellow vests. Um, but all of these, Libya, all of these, though, are fundamentally connected to each other. It's all about wealth inequality. It's all about taxation, and it's all about a feudal class of kings and ladies, and the servants, right, the peasants, and the rest of us. So we're very much going through that cycle now, and Bitcoin ultimately is what brings us into a new period of enlightenment. That was another main takeaway: is that Bitcoin has the power to take down central banks, to take down governments, to allow people to have money that will be worth something in the future, which gives you, the person, individual prosperity, freedom, privacy, private property. Our lifetimes, anyone that's alive during this period, we've only seen the world in a lens of central banking and serfdom, and being essentially like these slaves. Like your money, our money, for the last 50 years or so, has been stolen from through inflation. Ever since we came off the gold standard, the government gets to create more money each year out of nothing, thin air. And when they do that, it devalues everyone else's money, which devalues all of your savings very subtly, very sneakily. I think that's a word. And that's what leads people, and that devaluation is kind of what leads people to do a lot of what we see today. So it's all connected. This is something that was talked about quite a bit: liberty, freedoms, and doing what's right, and doing the collective thing that is good. Now, of course, we had another part of the conference which was talking about price. It was talking about investment and analysis. But there was a great presentation that was given by Brian Brian Estates. But I'll have the video posted too in the comments. You can go back and watch it. But Brian essentially gave a case where he thought to a 98th or 99th percentile that Bitcoin could be around, I believe it was 10 million to like 20 million in 10 years. The higher cases that I saw was one Bitcoin could be priced anywhere from 10 million to 100 million in 10 years. So eye-boggling price predictions. Again, this is why a lot of the channel that I create, the topics I'm talking about, are Bitcoin related, are economic cycles related, because we're going really fundamentally through a wealth transfer. It's one of these very few times in history that you have the ability to take ownership and be a part of an asset and a commodity that is so significant that it's going to run the next 200 years of society. And just like John Rockefeller and Carnegie and all these guys got to take advantage of oil and steel as commodities over the last 100 to 200 years, there's that opportunity still today. And Bitcoin is that opportunity. Now, these crazy price predictions, you say, well, how do we get there, Joe? How do we get to a $5 million Bitcoin? And my answer is that you're pricing it in dollars. And remember that dollars aren't tied to anything. The central bank just made 6 trillion more of them this year. So as more dollars are created now, its value becomes less, just like in Venezuela and Zimbabwe. All their currencies went through hyperinflation, and eventually the people's money is worth nothing anymore. It's paper. So when you hear about a $5 million Bitcoin, to me, how I interpreted that is that the level of inflation in the US dollar at that time is high enough where Bitcoin is worth these extreme valuations. Remember, Bitcoin really shows you how much inflation exists in the dollar, just like gold will show you how much inflation exists in the dollar. When you look at the price of gold, what I consider is that that's representing the amount of inflation at the dollar at any given time. Because gold is fixed, there's only so much of that exists on Earth. So as more time goes on, and dollars are you can buy and sell gold with dollars, so it has an exchange rate. You see the rise in dollars shows you the price in gold will show you how much the rise in dollars actually exists. Little fun fact too, I'm not going to go on a crazy tangent about it, but you remember gold used to be tied to the dollar. I think it was $33 to 1 ounce of gold back in the 1930s. I think that's it. It's 33, 31. That's okay. Go look it up. I encourage you to really do that. So, that was the original peg to gold, is like $33 to 1 ounce of gold. Well, how much does 1 ounce of gold now cost? It costs $1,800 an ounce of gold. Well, what is that difference between $33 an ounce of gold and $1,800? That's the amount of inflation. That's the amount of more of the money supply that the government has created ever since then, and the central banks. So as time goes on, I believe as we go through the end of this year, you can watch some of the past videos that I've recorded the last year and a half, 2 years. I've been talking about exactly this exact scenario. But as we go through the rest of this year, more stimulus packages will be created, more money will be created. There'll be multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages that will be introduced, and inflation in the dollar will start increasing at high levels. And then you start to see Bitcoin, gold, commodities, everything starts going up in price. So it's a really good time to still get involved. I really encourage you to watch some of my Bitcoin educational videos. I have a playlist on the YouTube channel, and you can learn about the 101s, Bitcoin 101. What is it? Why does it matter? But everyone, in my opinion, and this is not financial advice, they're just my opinions, but ultimately what I believe is that you should be saving in an alternative right now than you would in things like dollars and real estate, stocks even. And Bitcoin, because of its fixed supply, just like gold, is a very valuable commodity, as we'll talk about next, that's being accumulated and purchased and bought by people, companies, and now governments all around the world. Great. So this brings me up to the last point and the last takeaway from the conference. There was a lot of good things that were talked about, but the main takeaway was Jack Muller's speech at the end, and breaking the news that El Salvador decided to make Bitcoin legal tender, and also start to use it within their country as a currency. So what does legal tender actually mean? Legal tender is kind of what it sounds like. Like the government decides that it's legal to use a currency to pay debts and to use to pay grocery bills and everything within the country. The government decides that is legal. That's legal tender. That's a legal currency that you can use in this society. So what El Salvador is doing now is they're saying we're going to allow people to get paid in Bitcoin. We're going to allow them to spend at grocery stores and everywhere in Bitcoin. We're going to allow them to pay their taxes in Bitcoin, pay government bills in Bitcoin. And the government's also going to start reserving in Bitcoin, which will probably become a reserve asset. So it will be adopted in that country. This is significant because El Salvador is the first country in the world that has announced adopting Bitcoin as a piece of legal tender and also currency. So what I expect going forward is that there's an idea called game theory that's built into Bitcoin, where it's a psychology term, but essentially people will start adopting something because of the fear of missing out. So, once someone starts doing it, you have to do it because you're afraid that if it becomes something, you will miss out. And that is what El Salvador is starting to do now from a nation state level, is the first country in the world that has adopted Bitcoin. And now, ever since that, I have Twitter open right now. Today, we've also seen, literally within 24 hours, Ecuador, Mexico, Panama, Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, and Colombia have all now started to announce today that they are also considering adding Bitcoin to their governments, adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet, making it legal tender. And all their politicians have laser eyes on Twitter. And, so this is big news. This is huge news, because the idea is that if Bitcoin needs to become the reserve asset of the world, if it needs to become a global reserve currency, it needs to be adopted by every country as a currency, as a reserve asset. And we were waiting for one country to announce it for that game theory mentality. And that happened with Jack Muller's announcement. Him and Strike have been working in El Salvador for 3 months. They said they were onboarding 20,000 people per day onto the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Have future videos coming up with that. But that's just using Bitcoin. And it's really helped the people in El Salvador, because 70% of, I believe, all of their imports are from are from remittances. So they are payments back to the country from family that's working abroad or companies that are abroad paying money back to their relatives. That's the economy, is remittances. Well, if you've ever paid a Western Union bill or you ever sent money through MoneyGram, it costs a lot of money to send money that way. And a lot of the national economy in El Salvador has been suppressed because they've been stolen from through like these remittance companies, MoneyGram, all that stuff. So they decided that they were going to adopt Bitcoin because it was a much cheaper way to send money across borders, because there's no intermediaries, there's no one that has to be trusted in between, and that money can move anywhere around the world at the speed of light on the internet and get there. And now we're seeing this race that's happening with other countries in South America. So the way that it looks to me is that South America is kicking off this idea of a global hash war, a global war to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, to reserve as much Bitcoin as possible, and to get your country where they are using it, they are adopting it. Because remember, if Bitcoin is the oil of the 21st century and beyond, and it will be, uh, this is a commodity that countries are now starting to realize its value, and they want it to benefit for them, which it does. And now they're racing faster than ever for it. So that was very exciting news. I'll definitely be creating a lot more videos and that stuff going forward, and just passively talking about it. You can head back into the playlist and see a video from 2019 where I brought up the idea of government central bank digital currencies, where countries like the United States and China and Russia would create their own digital currency, like a digital dollar or digital yuan, and what that might look like. And a year and a half later, it turns out that's exactly what they're doing, and they're getting ready to roll out these digital currencies for you and I, probably within a year's time. But that's really, that's really about it. There's a lot more I could have talked about. I put in a few more videos and clips into this episode. Lightning Network is something that was really big over there. I will cover more of that going forward. But it was great. This is awesome. So again, reporting from the bunker today. A lot more of the videos will be coming from here. I'll find out if I can get some interviews with people too. That'll be kind of cool if I get that on here. But I hope the quality was good. I've got a new camera. The microphone's a good setup. But again, if you want to follow, if you want to support, you can like the YouTube channel here, Joe Rap TV, or you can click the link in the description and subscribe your email to the Rap Report and get all my content that way. That's it, y'all. I'll see you in the next video.